Netflix wants to buy Warner Brothers and HBO Max in an $82.7 billion deal. Now, I want to just first off say that this has not gone through yet. So any doomers can just relax because it hasn't happened yet. But we're going to go through the details here in this Variety article. Back in like September, I want to say, there was the whole South Park thing because Paramount was trying to appease Trump so that he would approve a deal where they would buy Warner Brothers. And so then that was why South Park went so anti-Trump. And then you also had them canceling the Colbert Show and all this crazy stuff, essentially to appease Trump. And now Netflix has stepped in to buy it. Here's the details. Paramount will play a factor. There's a reason that I brought this up, but this has been ongoing for at least a year, where Warner Brothers has been wanting to sell for a very long time. So it says here, it's official. In a move that will dramatically reshape the entertainment business, Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery announced an agreement Friday under which Netflix will acquire Warner Brothers, including its film and TV studios, its gaming business, HBO, and HBO Max. Now, something to consider here is that Discovery is not in there, which is like the television networks, as far as I'm concerned. So, Discovery, I think it's like, the Food Network and like HGTV, all that type of stuff, right? Here, it explains that the total value is about $82.7 billion. That includes debt that Warner Brothers has racked up. And it was a bidding war. So it was up against David Ellison's Paramount Skydance, and is also Comcast, which is another one. The main reason why Netflix was so aggressive and why these companies were so aggressive is because of just how many IPs Warner Brothers owns, right? DC's probably the biggest.
Batman.
They own the distribution rights to the Monsterverse, which we'll get into that in a bit. On top of that, too, think of it, just Wizard of Oz, Beetlejuice, Evil Dead. You think of an IP, there's a very good chance that Warner Brothers owns it. Looney Tunes is another one. In fact, that for a very long time was sort of like their flagship IP that they had, right? But here is where it gets interesting. This was viewed as being a Netflix killer, right? If Paramount or Comcast could get their hands on Warner Brothers, it would have been the Netflix killer. That was sort of the insider, opinion. But Netflix swooped in and bought it. So Netflix says it expects to maintain Warner Brothers' current operations and build on its strengths. There's a lot of doom pilling right now all over Twitter where people are like, oh my god, it's over, they're canceling everything. That's not going to be the case. They said that they want to keep HBO Max as its own thing, but they would essentially take a lot of the HBO Max material and put it on Netflix, which at a certain point makes you wonder, why would I want to have HBO Max? And maybe that's what they're trying to do, is to siphon out people who are using HBO Max over to Netflix and then slowly kill HBO Max, just slowly squeeze the life out of it, right? I day trade, I love doing stocks and whatnot, $27.75 per share of Warner Brothers Discovery. I personally have never bought or sold any Warner Brothers stock, so I was unaware that's how much it was. It was a bit of a volatile stock, so that's why I didn't really put any money into it. But essentially, here's how this works. In 12 to 18 months, that is when this is going to be resolved. Either Netflix is going to buy it and they will own Warner Brothers, or Trump will shut it down. And or rather not Trump, it would be, I assume, the FCC or whoever's in charge of breaking up trusts, right? That's sort of a big part of this. And Paramount is very much involved because they recently actually just put in a bid. It's like $30 per share. It's crazy. But here's some of the stuff that they would be acquiring. The Big Bang Theory.
Bazinga!
The Sopranos.
What that prick's face when he showed a dat?
I jacked off in a tissue.
Game of Thrones, Wizard of Oz, DC, as well as, and let's see, this is Netflix's now. So Wednesday, Money Heist, Bridgerton, Adolescence, Extraction. Also Stranger Things, The Electric State. A lot of duds in there, in my opinion.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Netflix doesn't have the best original catalog, but essentially there's been some confusion as to whether or not David Zaslav is going to be returning as the CEO, or if he's just going to be sort of like a middleman while this is all happening. There's a lot going on, a lot of regulatory stuff that I am not intelligent enough to explain to you guys. There's SEC filings. I think it was the FCC they have to go through as well. Whole lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff with antitrust laws. But this is where it gets weird, right? Couple things. For starters, a lot of people have been talking about the Monsterverse. This account here says that they haven't officially bought it, but like they agreed to terms. It says the Monsterverse and other Godzilla films are likely to be coming to the streaming service in the coming months/years. What are your thoughts on the breaking news? And, you get a lot of people where they're kind of panicking about it, all that type of stuff. So we'll have to buy Netflix to watch HBO Max. No, that's not going to be the case. This account is essentially engagement farming. I can't stand them. But long story short is, I think it's going to be business as usual. If you remember a long time ago, there was Godzilla vs. Kong that was about to come out, right? And Netflix really wanted it to be a Netflix-only release, while Legendary, the production company, pushed to make Godzilla vs. Kong theatrically released. And of course, that ended up saving movie theaters. I mean, it made a ton of money at the box office. So I think if Netflix wanted to keep the Monsterverse on Netflix only, it won't happen. You're going to see Legendary break away, and they're going to want to go to a different distribution company. They have said that before. They've said that they want to keep this as a theatrical thing. I'm not at all concerned about Godzilla or the Monsterverse with Warner Brothers. That's not where we're cooked at all. I think that it's fine. It's going to keep going as long as those movies keep making money, as long as they're released theatrically, which it seems like, and this is my next point here, it seems like Warner Brothers movies will still be released in theaters, but only for like 2 weeks. That's essentially what I've heard. There's been a lot of preliminary stuff. Okay, here we go. Here's a new thing, I guess, from 5 hours ago. The Writers Guild of America says the Netflix and Warner Bros. Merger must be blocked. The world's largest streaming company swallowed one of its biggest competitors, is what antitrust laws were designed to prevent. And I have to agree. I think that, for the most part, this should not be a thing that happens. I also don't think that Comcast or Paramount should be allowed to buy Warner Brothers. I think that's absolutely insane. And yeah, Warner Brothers is now trying to do a hostile bid where they come in. Rick the Squirrel here says that, whoever wins, we lose. It's a weird era. There's a lot that's going to be going on. There's a lot of people saying that this is the end of cinema. And whether or not that happens, we'll have to just wait and see. But personally, I think if you want to support movie theaters, go out and see them. Go out to the theaters and go see movies. Cancel your Netflix subscription if you don't want stuff like this to happen. Vote with your wallets. That has always been my opinion. Yeah, you have a lot of people here saying that this will be the death of cinema. We'll have to see, right? Warner Brothers isn't the only studio out there making movies and then putting them out in theaters. That's just not the case. There's a bunch of other studios. There's A24. There's Paramount, obviously. Disney, right? There's a bunch of them. There's independent ones as well. I mean, even Amazon Prime is putting stuff out in theaters. So this is concerning, though. Netflix CEO, who cares? I don't want to pronounce his name. He's a dick. Says movie theater model is outdated. Most of the country cannot walk to a multiplex. Most of the country doesn't walk. True. But I disagree. I think there's a lot of ways where you could straight up keep movie theaters in business, and it's just having movies in theaters for longer. Don't just have them in there for 2 weeks or 30 days. I think 90 days minimum is like almost like that's not long enough. There's a lot of great movies that are slow burn. But it's insane, to say the least. So I think Discussing Film is just kind of posting the same stuff. But yeah, it won't close until Q3 2026. They're going to continue. This is what Netflix claims. They will continue theatrical releases for films. I don't see why you wouldn't. To me, it seems like free money. Beyond marketing, which is included in budgets now, it's like just release it in theaters. If you make a little money, that's a good bonus. Otherwise, with Netflix, it's not guaranteed to make money. I don't know how they actually monetize stuff. If it's like Tubi, where, there's ads, I really don't understand. I am very much on the fence about all this. And by the way, I think it's time to talk about this. I promised I'd lay off the Snyder stuff, so we'll talk about this very briefly. There's a lot of Snyder bros that are celebrating right now, except the one thing is David Zaslav is set to stay as the new head of WB Studios. And on top of that, too, it's very clear that the DCU is not going away. The DCEU is dead. James Gunn put out a statement basically saying that, like, don't worry, we're going to keep making movies. This is not the end by any means. Clayface is coming out in September of next year. Supergirl's going to be out next year. I think that's like a May release. I'm not too certain. But I don't really think, look, it literally, this meme, it will be kept operationally safe from Netflix to make and distribute movies and TV series. And honestly, I think that has to be something that happens in order for this to not be hit with those antitrust suits. I really do think that Netflix has to tread carefully with this, or else they will get hit with that, anti-monopoly stuff. I really do think that's going to be the case. So, am I concerned? Like 25% concerned. At the end of the day, I vote with my wallet, right? I don't have a Netflix subscription. I don't care, right? I don't watch Stranger Things. I don't give Netflix money. I go and see movies that interest me in theaters because I want to support them. It's as simple as that. I think being all doomer-pilled about something that you can't control is the worst mindset that you could possibly have. Like, I don't know. That's my mindset. It is what it is at the end of the day, right? Physical media, Birdman, is a great point, by the way. Yeah, Netflix, they do release some of their movies, and I don't know about shows, but I know they release some of their movies in with like the Criterion Collection. Like I have the Marriage Story Blu-ray, I have the Irishman Blu-ray, so I think that's going to be an option. The other option is just sailing the seas, if you know what I'm talking about. I think a lot of people are going to be embracing piracy. Personally, I would never do that, honest to God, but there are going to be a lot of people with a lot of this stuff where they're just going to embrace piracy. And I think that's only going to keep happening as time goes on. I really do think that. So when you get stuff like this with Netflix buying out Warner Brothers, you might see that. I don't know. But I'm not endorsing it. I don't stand by it. I refuse. I refuse to endorse piracy. No, I'm kidding, guys. Don't pirate shit. Buy it, support the artists. I'm fucking around. So yeah, theatrical releases, physical media, those are the two. Netflix, I really do think they should take advantage, though, of physical media releases. I personally, for my movies, I was working on getting a physical media release done for like a bunch of my short films on one Blu-ray. The profit margin is crazy. Like, it's a money printer, right? I don't understand why Netflix doesn't do physical media releases more. That is sort of my thoughts on the WB Netflix merger. We'll see what happens, right? It's out of our hands at the end of the day. We really don't know what's going to happen. There was one funny thing that I saw was with the Harry Potter show and how, they want to do the, yearly seasons of Harry Potter. And that with Netflix's strategy of, Stranger Things taking like 9 years to make one season, that show's going to get canceled just for that reason. That made me kind of laugh. But yeah, essentially, I'm a bit concerned about the theatrical release stuff in physical media. We'll see what happens. There's only so much that you can speculate on. Elizabeth Warren tweeted about this. Let's see what she has to say. Netflix is trying to buy Warner Bros. This deal looks like an anti-monopoly nightmare. It actually seems like an anti-monopoly dream because the people in charge of taking down monopolies, this is like a golden opportunity to get your name out there as a politician and say, yeah, I was the one that struck this deal down. That's what politicians love to do, right? Why not? A Netflix Warner Bros. Would create one massive media giant with control of close to half of the streaming market. It could force you into higher prices, fewer choices over what and how you watch, and may put American workers at risk. Under Donald Trump, the antitrust review process has also become a cesspool of political favoritism and corruption. The Justice Department must enforce our nation's anti-monopoly laws fairly and transparently. Not not use the Warner Bros. Deal review to invite influence peddling and bribery. That last sentence was kind of wooden, but I do agree with Pocahontas here for the most part.
It may be Pocahontas, remember that.
She makes a good point, honestly. For the most part, I'd like to see a bipartisan sort of thing in Washington kind of agree that, hey, maybe this is antitrust, monopoly stuff. Let's shut it down. Yeah, monopolies are never a good thing. And I think that the more they do to prevent this merger from happening, the better. If this is what kills the film industry at a certain point, I really do think that you have to wonder what's going to happen from here. It honestly reminds me of when old Hollywood in the 60s completely fell apart. And then the new model was, okay, we're going to make all these little cheapo, low budget movies and put out 30 of them as opposed to putting out one big blockbuster for the year. And if one of them becomes a hit, the little shit movies with $20 million budgets, $10 million budgets, which back then was actually a lot. So we'll say $1 million, but nowadays it'd be 10, 20 million. It's that mindset that got us Back to the Future. It's what got us Taxi Driver, right? Experiment. I think stuff like this will lead to inevitably more experimentation because this could lead to the collapse of the current studio system as we know it. So for better or for worse, we'll see what happens, right? That's obviously the most it's going to fail and that's going to be a good thing kind of mindset. I don't know. I just wish that the people involved, it's important to remember with anything, with film production, is that these are people that work for these companies, right? They have families, they have bills to pay, and I just hope that in the end they get taken care of. They likely won't be, and that's tragic, but I personally hope that someone somewhere looks out for them and makes sure that the people that are involved in this, purchase and all this madness, that they get taken care of. Because I'm sure for them it's a lot of uncertainty at the minute. Us as consumers, yes, there's uncertainty about our favorite brands, being potentially ruined, but it's also consider the people behind the scenes, right? That's all. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine.